morning, everyone. I feel like I can't yell because it feels very loud. But it is so wonderful to see all of you here in person today. Thank you for joining us today as we embark on a very exciting process, the process of creating a framework to decarbonize all new residential and commercial buildings in the city of Los Angeles. Very exciting. This is such a critical moment for us to be engaging in this work. We are seeing rising temperatures, the risk of more dangerous wildfires, more severe droughts, more deaths from heat exposure. We're seeing our worsening air quality threaten our residents' health. And we know that we need to take bold and immediate action to save our planet, to prevent the worst effects of climate change. And yet, sometimes it feels like the biggest steps are hard for us to start immediately. A lot of people don't know this, but buildings actually make up the largest source of our climate pollution citywide. They account for 43% of greenhouse gas emissions. 43%. That's more than cars. It's more than what's produced by the manufacturing sector in our city. So if we're gonna get to the healthier, cleaner, more sustainable city that I know we all share a vision for, then we are going to have to tackle this issue of greening our buildings head on. And that is exactly what today's motion is intended to do. We are charging the Department of Building and Safety, working with the newly created Climate Emergency Mobilization Office and a number of other departments to create a regulatory framework for all new residential and commercial buildings in Los Angeles to be built so that they will achieve zero carbon emissions as our electric grid also becomes carbon-free. And we are setting the goal of having that framework in place ambitiously by January 1st of next year. The question is not if we will require decarbonized construction for new buildings, but when. Over 50 cities and counties in California have already enacted such REACH codes to reduce or eliminate carbon emissions in new building construction and to prepare their buildings for a carbon neutral future. They are already seeing the benefits: lower construction costs, better indoor air quality, fewer safety risks for their buildings. It is time for Los Angeles to do the same. The importance of doing this work in a way that centers equity and environmental justice, however, cannot be overstated. No one must be left behind. And we cannot balance the bill of decarbonizing our buildings on the backs of renters who are already struggling to make ends meet. That's why our motion requires that the policies we develop here protect renters and don't negatively impact affordable housing construction. And that's why I'm looking forward to continuing this work to bring the benefits of decarbonization to existing buildings in the near future. That's why I'm also so happy about the timing of this motion. It's happening before our city's climate assemblies have started, anchored by our Climate Emergency Mobilization Office. It provides us an opportunity at every stage of drafting this framework to take it to those who are most impacted and to bring their inputs right back into the policy exactly where we need it. It is also incredibly important that we ensure, as we transition our buildings away from natural gas as a fuel source, that we consider the workers who have depended in part for natural gas piping for their work. They too must not be left behind. So we are ensuring in this motion that these workers and their union representatives have a seat at the table so that they can help us put together the programs and policies that will lead to the creation of new quality jobs for workers in these impacted industries. I'm really proud to have worked alongside the LEAP LA Coalition, Lane, and a coalition of environmental groups, city departments, and labor unions to have brought this motion forward today. And I'm really proud to be standing with Mayor Garcetti today, Council President Martinez, and Councilmembers Farrell and Harris Dawson, who've signed on, who are not here, and Councilmember Koretz, who have all demonstrated consistent leadership on the environmental and environmental justice issues impacting this city. This is hard work, which faces real opposition from powerful interests. But with this coalition behind it, I am confident that we will get it done. And we have to do it. We have no time to waste. We must ensure that the city we're building today is laying the groundwork for the cleaner, healthier, and more equitable and sustainable Los Angeles of tomorrow. So without further ado, let me turn it over to our wonderful speakers. And though he couldn't be here today, I want to thank Councilmember Mitch Farrell for his partnership in this effort and for his committed leadership as the chair of the Energy and Environment Committee, which has pushed forward numerous innovative environmental policies that ensure that Los Angeles remains a global leader in setting environmental standards. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our mayor, Eric Garcetti, under whose leadership the city of Los Angeles has enacted one of the most aggressive Green New Deals in the nation, who I hope will see this as part of the environmental legacy that he is bequeathing this city, and whose staff have been really an incredible resource in putting this motion together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Council Member, and what a joy it is to be with you, the Council President, Councilmember Koretz, the Council members who can't be here. But let me just say something about you. I am so proud to stand alongside you and this coalition and our new South Coast AQMD board member. I was proud to nominate you last week, and I know you're going to do great things. I see Gideon Krakov, one of your fellow board members that's here, and thank you for always doing what's right. Look, leadership, after 20 years in this building, I've come to realize is about trying to look over the horizon and trying to communicate with your city what's coming. We can see over the horizon at this moment what's going to happen to Los Angeles and to California, to this country and to this world, if we don't stretch beyond what we think our reach is, if we don't move towards the boldest, most ambitious agenda. But Los Angeles leads. Just last week, we stood, including with some members of this coalition behind us, of environmental justice, to ban oil drilling in the city that was built on oil drilling. That was an historic moment, 100 years in the making. A couple months before, in a city that knew that progress 100 years ago meant stealing somebody else's water, we stopped that and are returning water in the Owens Valley and moving from just 15% of our water being local to 70% of our water being local. Here in this city, where we have the largest municipal utility, and when I started in this city council some 20 years ago, and people laughed at us when now Senator Padilla and myself moved forward to try to divest from a coal plant when we were majority coal electricity, we are now be at the end of this decade 97% carbon free, and by 2035 100% carbon free. So LA is leading. But when we put forward a Green New Deal in 2019, indeed our sustainability plan even before that, we said it was time to look at buildings. And the statistics that the council member mentioned are exactly right. 43% of our emissions come from buildings. But this isn't new to Los Angeles to lead with buildings. This was the first place I co-authored with then Global Green, the first municipal green building ordinance in 2002 with then the former Soviet president Mikhail Gorbachev. And people said, green buildings? That's going to cost you a lot. We saved money and we started saving emissions, and I hope that we have saved lives. We then moved that into the private sector, and a lot of building owners said, don't make me do those things that save water, that save electricity. And then after a while when they did it, some costs up front, they said, I'm saving more money than I ever did, and we said, you're also saving the planet. That's what today is about. And so when we put forward by 2030, though I think we can do it a lot earlier now, and one of the things I've said, and I hope whoever becomes the next mayor, whoever that is, can continue to say each year those goals in the Green New Deal, bring them down each year as we know the technology is there. And the 5 zeros, zero emission transportation, zero carbon electricity, zero carbon buildings, zero waste, and zero wasted water, should be what we see over the horizon and that we enact as well. I want to thank a couple of stakeholders too, because when we started doing this, I would get protests whenever we talked about this from some of our friends, from labor, from folks worried about the impact on renters. But we have brought together a coalition that says nobody will be excluded from this, and nobody can afford not to act on this. It's not good enough to say we're going to roll the clock back, because the planet is already burning. We see that in lives. We see that in seniors in the San Fernando Valley who die without air conditioning when it's hotter than it's ever been. We see that in forest fires and floods. We see it in extreme weather swings throughout this world. So we have to do this. But it doesn't mean we have to do it in a way that ignores people. And making sure that those building trades will have jobs that pay as good, if not better, than what they earn today, that we look at including them in the new technology. Trust me, if you took every building in Los Angeles and not just did new buildings, but as we retrofit old ones, there will be a lot of jobs in them, their hills. So this is something that will be good for our economy, this will be good for our ecology, and I want to thank this grassroots coalition that is behind me too. Many of my favorites who I've been together with for so many struggles, from a living wage to making sure that we have racial justice. Today we are standing together saying it is time for us to look over that horizon and do what's right. Muy brevemente también en español, hoy día Los Ángeles se acerca más a un futuro sin combustibles fósiles. En el 2019, cuando lanzamos el Trato Verde de Los Ángeles, nos propusimos que para el 2030 todos los edificios nuevos serán cero carbono. Hoy estamos tomando medidas para hacer esto una realidad. Gracias al Consejo Municipal, al concejal Raman y sus colegas en el concilio. En Los Ángeles nos estamos movilizando rápido para llegar a un futuro 100% de energía renovable. A finales de esta década llegaremos a un 80%. Nuestra ciudad está liderando la lucha contra el cambio climático y esto es debido a nuestra visión y colaboraciones. Muchísimas gracias, and with that, hand it back to great leader who's put this forward, Councilmember Raman.
Okay, now I get to introduce our Council President Martinez, and I think I'm particularly excited to be introing you today, not just because of your leadership in the Council, but because of your background from the environmental justice movement that you have brought with you in all of your policymaking in the city, and because under her leadership, we in the city are going to be seeing some of the most impactful changes to our buildings and planning through the housing element, transforming the way in which Los Angeles plans for its future, centering equity at every step. So thank you very much, Council President Martinez, for being here.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Raman. I grew up in a community where families crammed into a single house, where garages were converted into apartments with an extension cord providing power. These are the neighborhoods that also suffer from the worst pollution in the state. They are crisscrossed by freeways and factories that sit right next to where people actually live. However, these old and often run-down houses, the indoor pollution is often so much worse than what you're breathing when you walk out that door. These are the neighborhoods that I live in and the neighborhoods that I represent. We're here today to announce that all new residential and commercial buildings in Los Angeles must be built so that they achieve a zero carbon emission. And decarbonization for new construction buildings is an important step forward. But what about the older buildings and the buildings where people are currently living with these conditions? This is not a catchy slogan, and it's not a trendy topic. This is meaningful. This is what people in my community have been begging for decades. Because I've seen my neighbors, and my neighbors have seen their neighbors die from health effects related to poor living conditions in our communities. Last year, Los Angeles passed the most ambitious housing element in the entire country, with the goal of building 500,000 new homes in the next decade. And with this motion, we will make sure that the housing is built sustainably. However, we are trying to make healthy living environments. We can't just focus on new construction. From mold to poor installation to old carpets to appliances like gas stoves, we need people to live in new and improved conditions in their own neighborhoods. We also must not lose sight of the fact that this motion will also have a major impact on the working people who construct our buildings. We cannot leave the plumbers and the contractors whose livelihoods depend on their work behind. This is why my motion to create an office of job quality stabilization to address this very issue is so important. As we work towards a more sustainable city, we cannot leave behind and abandon hard-working Angelenos who want to keep their good-paying jobs to provide for their families. Today's motion is a proof that the city of Los Angeles Angeles and its leaders are adapting to climate change. However, as with all of our policies, we must and we will not leave working people behind. We have to put working class neighborhoods first as we transition. Hay prensa en español, ¿verdad? ¿Dónde están? ¿Aquí? Quiero asegurarme. Mientras en estos vecindarios en donde crecí y donde vivo actualmente y represento, la contaminación dentro de nuestras casas es mucho peor, desafortunadamente, que el aire que respiramos en nuestros vecindarios. Descarbonizar los edificios es un paso importante, no solo para las metas del clima de la ciudad, sino también para los angelinos en las comunidades, como la mía, que es donde experimentamos el medio ambiente y donde respiramos una pésima calidad de aire. Esta moción requiere que todos los nuevos edificios residenciales y comerciales construidos en la ciudad de Los Ángeles dependan de cero carbono y que construyan una meta de nuestra ciudad sostenible, efectiva para el 1 de enero del 2223. Y a modo de hacer esto, necesitamos priorizar y proteger los empleos de los angelinos cuyas industrias están cambiando en este tiempo de tratar de mejorar el clima. Tenemos que proteger estos trabajos y los trabajadores que dependen de esta industria. Mientras construimos una ciudad más sostenible, no debemos permitir de que nadie se quede atrás. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so much. I appreciate, too, that our mayor looked back at the path that led us here, and Council President Martinez, you have centered the incredible work that lies ahead and the people for whom that work matters the most. So thank you for those remarks. Next, I'd like to invite up my colleague, Councilmember Koretz, who's been a climate leader in the city for so long, and I am so honored to have him standing by us as we take this next step.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Raman, for your leadership and partnership on this important initiative today, and to the mayor and all my council colleagues together who are leading the nation, if not the world, in climate action. We've heard some complaints that LA is behind in this issue, that so many little cities have already done decarbonization across California. Well, today we truly take it to scale in our city of 4 million people. And we do it right with the financial well-being of each one of those Angelinos firmly in mind as well. Back in 2016, when the groups who became known as the LEAP LA Coalition started working together with my staff and me to create the Climate Emergency Mobilization Office, this was the ordinance that we had in mind. We knew after the massive Aliso Canyon SoCal gas climate disaster that we needed to get our building stock off methane gas. Most importantly, we knew that we had to do it in a way that didn't make things expensive for lower income Angelinos who are already struggling to make ends meet. And we knew we had to do it in a way that did not adversely impact workers at the same time. The Climate Equity LA Community Engagement Series has arisen from those efforts, thanks to strong and ongoing support from the LEAP LA Coalition, Mayor Garcetti, Council President Martinez, and the rest of my colleagues, and will begin in a few weeks. Today we begin a short and necessary journey to rid our buildings of methane and thereby free the lungs of Angelinos from the indoor air pollution and free the earth from one of the most dangerous greenhouse gases. It's been a long time coming, but that's only because we're making sure that we do it right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Koretz. With that, I wanted to pass it over to Agustin Cabrera, who's the Policy Director of Scope, a member of the LEAP LA Coalition, and really part of the coalition that has brought us to this day. So, Agustin?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Agustin Cabrera. I'm Policy Director at SCOPE, a grassroots organization in South LA and proud member of the LEAP LA Coalition. SCOPE is building a community power towards transformation from climate crisis to climate justice for a more equitable economy and healthier communities. A long history of fossil fuel dominance and disinvestment in South LA has led to climate chaos, severe unemployment, and an undemocratic control of policies and resources. The climate crisis impacts the communities we represent first and worst, and this motion is a necessary step in the right direction. While we move ahead with the climate solutions, how we move forward is particularly important. As we've seen from the past, policies that benefits and burdens are not equitably distributed. Through the Climate Emergency Mobilization Office, we have an opportunity to design policy differently and disrupt a pattern where policy is designed for communities, but doesn't actually include our communities in the process. By centering the communities that are most impacted by past, present, and future policy, and to use policy not only to prevent future harm, but to rectify the mistakes and intentional discrimination of the past. Last year, we formed an alliance of environmental justice, housing, and labor partners to learn from each other and other experts about building decarbonization and the potential impacts it may have on renters, workers, those who've been excluded from employment, and frontline communities. We would like to thank LEAP, Repower, SAGE, and our labor partners who have taught us a lot in the process and have created a collaborative process built upon mutual respect. We appreciate Councilmember Raman's and her staff's collaboration and partnership in working with us to ensure that the process laid out in this motion will incorporate community feedback from the Climate Equity Series and ensure that there are opportunities for community members who will be most impacted to meaningfully engage and influence our city's policy. We know that there's still a lot of work to do in pursuit of an equitable, just, sustainable city, and we look forward to continuing to work with Councilmember Raman, Council President Nury Martinez, Councilmember Koretz, and the Mayor towards that shared collective goal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Agustin. I also just wanted to say that the Climate Emergency Mobilization Office's work, and Marta Segura, our director of it, is here today, and really this couldn't have happened without your leadership in that department. The work that you're doing, bringing the voices of people into our policymaking process, couldn't also happen without partnership from our city departments. And I want to recognize Osama from DBS, who's here today with members of his team. The fact that they're here shows how committed the city is to making this happen, to centering this work, and I am really so grateful for you, for all of you, and for everyone at the city for really putting their all into this. And finally, I wanted to introduce our last speaker, Roxana Tynan, needs no introduction, Executive Director of Lane. Thank you, Roxana.
Hi, I'm Roxana Tynan. I'm the Executive Director of the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy, and together with SCOPE, we anchor the Repower LA Coalition, and we're so proud to be here with our mayor and with our council president and council members Raman and Koretz to support this. Repower is really grounded in the idea that we can't move forward to a clean energy future if we are not building alliances that represent the most impacted communities and the most impacted workers. And as I look at our beautiful LADWP building ahead of me, you know, one of the things Repower really did was to create the utility pre-craft trainee program that the union built that offers a pathway into great union jobs in the utility from the communities that are most impacted by climate change. So we want to make sure as we move forward with this exciting motion that workers and community continue to be at the forefront of figuring out how this is going to work, and that we make sure that we don't do what unfortunately has happened with a lot of rooftop solar, which is to substitute good quality union jobs for very low wage non-union jobs. And to subsidize folks folks who are wealthier at the expense of the communities who, as Councilmember Martinez was reminding us, deal with the worst air quality in our city. So we're excited to keep moving forward with this. We want to make sure that this city continues to lead in making sure that this transition leads to quality union jobs and access to those jobs for the communities that are impacted most. So thank you so much.
And with that, our speakers have come to a close. I'm just really excited. I think there is a palpable sense of ownership that every person who is here feels over this step today. This isn't just the authors of this motion who made this come forward. It's every person here, and I can feel that. So I just wanted to express my deepest gratitude to all of you. This feels so meaningful, and I know it feels so meaningful for all of you too. So thank you very much, and unless there's any questions, we are done.